Welcome to Shattered Reality with your hosts Kate Valentine and Fahrusha. Prepare to have your paradigms shifted and your truths questioned. And now, Shattered Reality.
Hi, welcome back to another podcast or blogcast, I should say. And I am Kate Valentine.
And I am Fahrusha. And today is February 16th, 2016. And all of us here are just coming down from wild weekend of partying, Valentine's Day and President's Day.
Speak for yourself, Fahrusha.
But when people start to get too romantic about Valentine's Day, I always say it's celebrating the St. Valentine's Day massacre. That kind of quiets them down a little bit.
That must have been a lot of fun for the people perpetrating it.
Perhaps, I guess, if you're a psychopath.
Yeah. Anyway, we have a wonderful guest with us today. And Fahrusha, I think you found out about this gentleman.
Yes, I did. The guest that we have today is a dream studies expert. And dreams are such an unusual part of our lives. Just about everybody has dreams. Not everybody remembers the dreams. Some people dream in color, some in black and white. And dreams can include other sensory things like tastes and smells and touch. And it's a very, very strange state of mind to be in, a different place. And sometimes dreams seem very real, like lucid dreams. In any case, I came across this gentleman several years ago when I do write a blog. It's farusha.wordpress.com, just in case anybody wants to know. And I had written a blog that concerned itself with sleep paralysis and how I've suffered from it and have had incredible experiences with sleep paralysis. And I wrote a blog piece about it. And what it was saying that um, an alien, because we deal with aliens a lot on this show, aliens and UFOs, right, Kate?
Sure, I love him. I'd
And
love to be one.
and what happened to me was it would seem to me like I was possibly being abducted in my sleep paralysis. And it did occur to me that if an alien race, whether it be a physical race or a race in a different dimension, beings in another dimension, uh, were so far ahead of us that they were traveling interstellar space, it was also quite possible that they knew more about our biology than we do. And because all higher mammals seem to suffer from sleep paralysis, which essentially is not being able to move while you're sleeping because you wouldn't want to jump out the window while you were dreaming because you had such a dream. And that the others, I'll just call them others. I won't call them aliens. I'll just call them others. The others might be aware of that and know that we are angry apes with guns and don't want to meet us face on, head on. And so they use that state of dream paralysis to subdue us, if you will. And then they can find out whatever they need to about us or impart something to us if they so desire. So long story short, and it's getting to be a long story here, but long story short, I wrote this blog piece or two, and actually, this blog piece is still the most popular, hands down blog piece I ever wrote. It was so popular, I had to shut down the comments.
Good.
So many people wrote in, and people continue to contact me on my email, having read it, and send me uh, stories about their sleep paralysis nightmares. So I was looking for somewhere to go to find out what I could do to help these people that was beyond my ken, a little bit going towards the scientific, towards the psychological, and away a little bit from the paranormal, simply because I wanted to anchor these people, because some of them seemed not anchored. And so I found our guest today. Our guest today is Mr. Ryan Hurd. He is a consciousness researcher and author, and is the founder of dreamstudies.org. It's a wonderful site. It is dedicated to sleep, dreams, and imagination. His books include Dream Like a Boss, books 1 and 2, Lucid Immersion Guidebook, A Holistic Blueprint for Lucid Dreaming, and Sleep Paralysis, a guide to hypnagogic visions and visitors of the night. He also co edited with Kelly Bulkeley the 2-volume reference edition of Lucid Dreaming New Perspectives on Consciousness and Sleep. Now, as an educator, Ryan has presented to a wide range of audiences, including invited lectures for the TED Med Talks, Stanford University, the Institute of Buddhist Studies, and the prestigious Rhine Institute, which is down in North Carolina. As a researcher, he has presented and published papers on sleep paralysis, lucid nightmares, and the application of dreaming for uncovering research bias and novelty. I'm going to have a question for him about research bias. He is a board member of the International Association for the Study of Dreams and a member of the American Anthropological Association and the Society for the Anthropology of Consciousness. And later on, he will tell you his sites, his research sites, and all the places where you can find him. And he will also repeat his books if you didn't catch it when I said it. So let us welcome Ryan Hurd.
Wow, it's quite an introduction. Great to have you with us,
Yes,
Ryan.
thank you for that wonderful introduction. I am quite pleased with myself now. Oh, it's hilarious. But I love the way you introduced sleep paralysis, and I love the term that you used about the others. I think that's a wonderful way to approach it because it doesn't define it. It's just like we don't know what this is.
Yeah.
That's correct.
It's a good way to start.
But obviously, you're fairly knowledgeable about people being visited by others, then?
Yeah, and I have experienced it myself.
Have
And
you?
so this is a subject that's very near and dear to me. I actually was 14 years old the first time I encountered sleep paralysis with the vision component, which not everybody gets. And it was one of the scariest experiences of my life.
Yeah.
And it took years for me to kind of recover the experience because I had sort of shoved it away. And you very quickly realized that not many people wanted to hear about it, and realized that it was sort of part of this complex of 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 dreaming experiences that, even though they're tabooed, they're actually quite common.
Do you find like a certain type of person that experiences this as opposed to others?
Yeah, there are actually a few subsets of populations that experience sleep paralysis. Maybe I should define sleep paralysis for
Okay.
everyone just to start with, because there's really several kind of layers to the experience. The first and the most common is actually a feeling of paralysis or immobility when you're waking up or going to sleep. And so it's very common to happen either in the mornings or sometimes if you're sleep deprived right as you're going to sleep. And it actually feels like something or someone is holding you down. It feels like a pressure, a weighted pressure. And that's the core experience. That's why it's called sleep paralysis. And it has a biological, function to it. It's well known and well studied. But it gets weirder, and it gets
It
weirder
does.
because for one thing, you become quite emotional quite quickly, especially if you don't have any way of explaining what's happened to you. If this is the first time it's happened, then it can feel quite paranormal. I mean, I think the mind goes there immediately, and and the fear can spiral because you are in a hybrid dream state. You're basically the mantra I use to describe it is that the mind is awake but the body is asleep.
Mm.
And in this hybrid state, this borderlands of consciousness between the waking world and the dream world, you're still in, even though you've got your logical capabilities and you're thinking as if you're in waking life and everything feels quite real, you're able to sort of project dreaming awareness and consciousness into the scene too. And that's where that heightened emotionality comes in. People get very scared very quickly. It can heighten even to death anxiety,
Mm.
especially for people who, number one, don't have a culture, or B, have a culture that explains this as demons and as succubi and other kinds of terrible creatures, because you pull right into that. So that's the second level of weirdness. The next level of weirdness is that people feel a sensed presence in the room. So it's not just the feeling necessarily of feeling the pressure, but sometimes, about 20% of the time, there is a sensed presence. Uh, Something is not you that's in the room, and it's usually considered malevolent. It's considered like it's focusing on you, and it's just a feeling of that you're in relationship with this unseen other, this unseen entity. And from there, then the dream vision can get even deeper and fulfill sort of all the expectations of your worst possible nightmare. And what I'm talking about is a full-on three-dimensional vision that integrates with your waking environment, that involves actually seeing the entity, having it sit next to you. It can molest the dreamer. It can actually sexually molest the dreamer. Feelings of pain can be felt, as well as feelings of ecstasy, feelings of pleasure, and sometimes, and this is very strange, the feelings of disgust, fear, and the erotic sensations all come together in a very un-PC kind of way. And what happens also beyond this is that the dreamer can be catapulted into outside of their bedroom into a out-of-body experience, or even go into a dream and be completely in an unrelated dream scene and maintain awareness. And so those are sort of the escalating levels of weirdness that the strangely right placid term sleep paralysis describes.
Well, I wanted to ask you if you have any knowledge of other higher mammals experiencing sleep paralysis, as we have all seen dogs who appear to be asleep, but then their legs are going, but they're not going anywhere. I had a cat that would be sleeping and she would start talking, not English, but also not meowing. She was sort of like making sounds like she was having a conversation with someone and she was asleep. So I'm assuming that higher mammals, and by assuming, I don't mean it comes out of nowhere. I mean that there is something which we experience when we see a sleeping animal that occasionally would mimic, in my mind, what sleep paralysis might look like, say, in a dog or a cat.
Yeah, I actually think you're absolutely right. I mean, what sleep paralysis well, it's explained as, let me put it that way, because we don't have all the answers yet. Is it's a REM intrusion, so rapid eye movement sleep, the stage of sleep where dreaming, vivid dreaming usually occurs, is intruding into wakefulness or into stage one sleep, or sort of that stage of sleep that feels like deep relaxation. And so it is a REM intrusion. It is very much about REM sleep in terms of the experiences themselves, because in REM sleep, in normal REM sleep, we feel this paralysis. It's happening every night. We just don't remember it because we're safely in the dream world. And one would suspect that this evolved, and it's been described as being basically an evolved mechanism for preventing us from, acting out our dreams, or sort of swashbuckling our sleep partners when we're like living out a pirate fantasy in our dream. We're immobile, so we can live out the dream fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems to be a hiccup in that process. And given, we know cats and dogs sleep, and cats and dogs definitely have REM sleep. All higher mammals have REM. So I would suspect that sleep paralysis could occur as a hiccup, although it's impossible to verify because, right, the communication issues. But I would suspect that it could be possible. Now the question is it impactful? Would they know about it? Would they think about it later? I mean, all these kind of higher cognition questions that we don't know about cats and dogs. Maybe dolphins, probably have maybe the best literature on the topic, but we just don't know because we don't speak dolphin.
Well, that's certainly true. So, have you heard, I'm sure you have, about, and probably have written about the vibrational state that occurs sometimes with sleep paralysis, which goes before the out of body experience, should it occur?
Absolutely, and it's such a cool feeling. I've felt it hundreds of times myself, and it's some people experience it more than others. Some people never experience it, so there seems to be some individual differences there, right? But
Yes.
it is there's this is typically described in from a dreaming perspective as hypnagogic hallucination, and it tends to involve vestibular activity in the brain. So there's basically there's a sense of self, there's gravity shifting, there's morphine happening that we can't quite account for. It causes feelings of confusion. It's happening, deep in the brain, essentially, or in the inner ear. And we've got all kinds of studies that show that is what's firing up when these experiences are happening, and it's absolutely an indicator that you could, if you choose, roll that into an out-of-body experience.
Now, in my mind, out of body experiences are varied and different. However, there's one main difference between two different kinds. And this is just my own characterization of it. There would be the experience where you go out of your body, whether you're pulled out or you go out voluntarily, and you are pretty much in the world as you know it. Pretty much, if you go out of your body and you go down the stairs, you'll be in your house. And then there are others which the world is slightly different, closer to a dream state, where some things may be recognizable, and then others are rather different than in the waking state. Can you speak to that at all?
Absolutely, yeah. Out-of-body experiences. I mean, what's so interesting to me is I think that we're really talking about probably multiple phenomena here, and they're related in the sense that there's a sense of moving outside of the body, but as you described, there's these different varieties of them, and they seem to be related to essentially your mode of exit. Sleep paralysis, out-of-body experiences are highly correlated with lucid dreaming, and one can move from an out-of-body experience into a conscious dream, and with in a fluid state, right? And so at first it seems like you're in your waking life bedroom when you go out of body in a sleep paralysis encounter, and then maybe you'll melt through the window, but when you get outside it's a completely different landscape.
Right.
It's more like a dream landscape. Whereas hyper realistic out of body experiences that occur from the waking world, right, they have a different feel to them, and I think the near death experience being one of them. When somebody, and you don't actually have to be near death to have a near death experience. It can be triggered by a sudden drop of blood pressure, essentially, that turns on this REM switch, and you eject yourself from, from the phenomenal body, the body as you perceive it. I mean, heard so many multiple cases of people who have spontaneous OBEs when they're in a car wreck, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And and it happens so fast. And they're out of their body, and then they're back in, and then of course there's the relaxation or the trance related out of body experience, which is the kind where you see where this kind is often being taught
Yes.
by practitioners.
Yes, it
And
is.
this is coming out of light sleep or what I would call trance, and it involves reclining in your chair, maybe listening to some music on a headphones or binaural beats. There's kind of ways to different ways to get into this, and those out of body experiences, although they're dreamlike and longer lasting than a near death experience type situation, they seem to be hyper realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you parse it as well?
Uh, Basically, I would have to agree with most of what you said. In terms of the trance-induced ones, they seem to be somewhere between extraordinarily realistic and extraordinarily fantastical. I did take a class with Bill Bowman, who you probably have heard of, on out of body experiences, and one of his you would kind of rock your body, and also uh, Bob Monroe had that experience where you would listen to binaural beats, and then you would begin to feel your inner body rocking from side to side, and your feet elongating or your head elongating, and then you could kind of pop out like that if you wanted to. Um, and of course, the near death experience, for whatever it turns out to actually be, um, it, it seems to be sometimes more fantastical, where
Mm.
you're more apt to see non physical entities, and sometimes they're very meaningful. But we have to move this back to what is veridical about a lot of these experiences, Ryan, because sometimes we will see things, or for instance, when something that's very close to out of body, which is like an astral projection. I practiced that when I was in my late teens and in my 20s, and I would try to have fun and astrally project to where somebody I knew was. If Jimmy was at the 10th Street bar, I would astrally project myself to the 10th Street bar and say, find him drinking Manhattans instead of his usual highballs, and say, "Hey Jimmy, what were you doing last night at the 10th Street bar, drinking Manhattans instead of highballs?" and have him basically faint. There was no Jimmy though.
Oh, that's great. And thanks for bringing up that piece about near death experiences of having. I mean, they really, I think, go so far beyond a basic out of body experience, and really do. I mean, are another level of right. You're contacting heavenly, entities, ancestors. There's the life review. There's all these different components to the near death that really is kind of unique to that particular experience. So I think the out of body experience space is huge. I think that it's not just all one thing, and so you got to be very skeptical of someone who says, "Well, they're all dreams," or right, or they're all hallucinations. It's like, well, I don't think we don't really can't say about that, and especially when you look at, as you're saying, telepathic information that comes through these, um, and I've reviewed the telepathic dream research, and it's compelling.
It
Um,
is.
it is so far beyond chance, and some of these studies have been done again and again, and there's problems with some of it, and that's for sure. And the research could be improved, that's for sure. But that's true with all social science research, and dream telepathy research is far above the standards of what is expected for any other social science in terms of like the p-values and the statistical, like the quantifications of the data, and how that data is parsed. It's quite clean.
It is. It
And
is.
so it's just people, of course, are biased about actually looking at it.
Well, they say that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, so that when you are shaking the cage of the materialist, reductionist model of science. When you're shaking that cage, you have to have somewhat extraordinary proof, like standard deviation higher than for other things.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. And what I think is that honestly that psi or telepathy or whatever it is that's going on with this information, I think it's a weak effect in general in the lab because of the way that the studies are structured, and I think it's a much higher effect in the field in everyday life because we tend to have these experiences about people who we care about, who we know well, who we're connected with on a heart level, about issues of like life and death and wellness. And that's, if you look at the letters of J.B. Ryan, for instance, that Mary collected over the decades, 70% of the letters are telepathic dreams, and most of those are about, premonitions of someone dying or being sick.
I noticed in your biography that you more or less started as an archaeologist in North America or
Pardon
an
me.
anthropologist.
Well, I was trained as a field archaeologist,
Yeah.
and so that's to say is I did cultural resource management for about a decade after getting my bachelor's degree in anthropology and archaeology. And I actually, I worked in a lab. I worked in the field all across the United States, and I was a pottery expert for a while for a very
Wow.
specific pre-Columbian stage of pottery that nobody knows about. It's one of those random skills I've developed over the years,
Cool.
uh, and was involved with excavations and surveys, and I had a wonderful time with it. But I realized that I was being called back to doing dream research. I mean, when I say called back, I really mean because it has always been my number one passion growing up as a teenager and as a young adult.
I
Uh,
was just wondering if perhaps you had learned something from the Native Americans because they tend to be sort of more that way than as Fahrusha said with modern science, with reductionist science. I mean, their belief is quite strong.
there's some really wonderful yes, there's some really wonderful contemporary Native American dreamers out there who are still practicing their arts, and some of them are quite open to talking to everybody about what they do and how they do it. And you have to remember that even like the dream catcher was essentially a
Right.
gift for all of humanity. It is not culturally appropriated. It was a please take this and go far with it. It came out of the plains traditions. Um, Please, everybody, use this. And so yeah, there's a very strong, I think, dreaming sense that comes from the land, and it comes from the history and the people that are still with us here in Native America. Absolutely.
Would you feel okay about mentioning on the air here a couple of the people that you find compelling in the Native American genre of dream research or dream tellers or explainers?
Well, sure, absolutely, and as is often the case, of course, it's involving mixed blood. But one of them is Apila Colorado, who operates out of Hawaii. She operates a foundation called the Worldwide Indigenous Science Network, and they're involved with networking with healers and shamans around the world to help basically do grassroots environmental work. Uh,
Wonderful.
yeah, it's a really really powerful work, and she's been involved in the space, and she has her own method of doing dream work that can be done cross culturally. It can even be done with if you have a translator present, it is helpful, but not everybody in the room has to speak the same language, and she's been developing that for a number of years. And also on the scholarly side, Barbara Tedlock, who is a professor of anthropology at um, uh, SUNY Buffalo. She's
Oh,
at Buffalo. Has written quite a few popular books that are about especially the most recent one is the woman in the shaman's body, and she basically talks about what's going on in South America, in Mexico, and traditions of shamanism that come through women's line of descent that have been ignored because most anthropologists have been men, and they ignore women's magic, they ignore women's power. And one of these is the midwife as shaman, and the other one is of course the dream seeker, the dream teller. And she's been just doing incredible work both on the academic side of kind of like filling it in terms of the other angles, marginalized voices, and also on the popular side of writing books like that that is for anybody to read.
Well, I think it pretty much shut down in Western society after the witch burnings. I mean, I think a lot of women tended to avoid that particular career. Did not end well.
No, no.
Thousands of women killed by the Inquisition across
Yeah.
Europe. Thousands of useful women who practiced herbal medicine
Yeah.
and midwifery and things, forgetting about any kind of magic, which may have magic with a K that
And
may
for,
have been
yeah, and
done.
for some reason, I always think that there's that underlying suspicion that women may be better at this than men, like a little bit more intuitive. Although I don't think that's true. I think that's cultural.
My experience of that, just for no other reason, is that women tend to have more be more of the empath, but the actual like the being able to get people's names, for instance, or write down a number, that's pretty evenly distributed
Yeah.
between men and women. And when we think about Ingo Swann, who was the only remote viewer who could actually view numbers
Yeah.
on that were hidden away from his possible viewpoint,
Mm-hmm.
and he, of course, was a man.
Mm.
So, Ryan, right now, if I'm not mistaken, you are involved with teaching an online lucid dreaming course.
That's true. Yeah, I'm teaching online independently now. My class is called Lucid Ignition,
Hmm.
and
Good.
it's 1 month process all online where I do live webinars and we have a dedicated forum and whatnot. And I basically teach people how to do lucid dreaming um, in a way that's sustainable, in a way that basically forming a secure container um, in a mindful way, doing practices of the mind, but also of the heart and physical practices, all that sort of what supports this idea of greater consciousness in your dreams and in the waking state. It's been a blast. I've run this course now twice,
Mm-hmm.
and I just am really enjoying how online education is becoming is getting so good. Basically, the technology makes it so you can really just beam yourself into people's homes and teach them something and have live discourse about it, and it's fantastic.
It's almost like sleep paralysis. Out of body experiences.
Well, yes, Ryan will come
Yeah. Yeah,
into your
really.
living room
Isn't that
right on
funny?
your iPad,
Yeah.
and you can look at him, and he can look at you
Yeah,
forcibly. And
no, it's true.
we don't even need to project astrally. We
Oh,
have it
no,
done
we
for
have
us
the internet
electronically.
now.
But what we don't want to do
Mm.
is lose those wonderful gifts that we have to
As
of
humans.
precognition and astral projection and so forth and so on. So, if a person who is listening to our podcast over the next couple of years, and we'll be up, for as long as we're able to keep it up, um, what would you say to a person who wanted to be able to remember their dreams a little bit better? That seems like a very basic thing. Even I, have to sort of program myself before I go to sleep to say, remember your dream.
Mm.
You're going to dream tonight a wonderful dream. Remember that dream. And the first thing in the morning, you are going to write it down in your little notebook.
That's great. Actually, I couldn't have said it better myself. It really is about setting an intention, to remember more dreams, and then to have something at hand, right? You have your journal. A lot of people use apps these days on their smartphones or tablets and whatnot, and you can even use voice recorder apps these days. Whatever works. The point is to get the dream out into the world pretty much as soon as you can, because they go so quickly. We really lose so much of a dream within 10 or 15 minutes after it happens. In general, some people have learned how to have better recall, but for beginners, that's the number one thing. And of course, the the logistical nightmare of this, if I can say it that way, is that so many of us wake up by an alarm, and we're jolted awake, and we have to get to work and kind of get into our day, and the dreams evaporate, and they're just gone. And so one of trick that I really enjoy doing, that I have done myself, is I basically have my alarm set so I have basically 10 extra buffer minutes, in the scene. And when the alarm goes off the first time, I go to tap it off, and then I move back into the position that I was sleeping before I was disturbed. And then from there, I start actively remembering my dreams. And for some reason, when you're in that body position, you have an easier time with the recall. And of course, you might actually slip back into a dream if you're a light sleeper, and you might have another 9 minutes there before the alarm goes off again. But it's a great time to sort of ease yourself into the waking world rather than quickly jumping, into the tasks that you have in front of you. And that one practice alone can really just bring all kinds of dreams back. And soon you'll have a different problem. You'll have the problem of, I have too many dreams to write down. I'll never I'll never get on with my life if I spend all day writing down dreams. And I've been there, and that's the point where you have to start drawing lines and say, okay, well, maybe this narrative about being in my high school cafeteria, I can just let that one go, because I dream it 4 times a week or whatever.
So, what do you say about recurrent dreams? What do you have a particular protocol that you think about when you hear, say, somebody has a recurrent dream, to determine whether it's an important message that's being impressed upon their psyche, or if it's just garbage of the day?
Yeah, that's a great question, because recurrent dreams really come in a few different stripes, it seems to me, and some of them are just essentially like almost like core narratives or metaphors of places that we go, places that we inhabit in our dream life. The hallways and the landscapes of where you went to college, or high school, your childhood home, right? Essentially, a lot of dream landscapes tend to be from the first half of life, your first 25 years, more or less. And a very intense time of life, and there's lots of learning going on there. And so just because you have a repetitive dream about, for instance, the high school cafeteria, doesn't necessarily mean that something is impactful there necessarily. But you can take that anchor and anchor that to an intention to have a lucid dream, to wake up in your dream, by teaching yourself, when I find myself in the cafeteria, I'm going to do a reality check. I'm going to see if I'm dreaming or not. And that, for me, has definitely caused lucid dreams. But there's other kinds of repetitive dreams too, and some of them I think can be very important to listen to, because they contain, for instance, body messages. Um, Basically, and the way I see it, it's not so much that the body is trying to send a message to you, but rather the body is expressing itself, right? It's and it's coming through the nervous system, and it's being made into emotional and visual metaphors,
Mm-hmm.
and we can pick up on them. And there's, for instance, some fascinating and timely research being done by an MD named Larry Burke, who has been working with women who have discovered their breast cancer through warning dreams. And he's collected hundreds of these dreams, in which women had, they would have a dream, for instance, of looking in the mirror and seeing a spider on their chest, or a dark spot, or mushy skin, or essentially these personalized metaphors of ill ease. And then in waking life, they followed up on it and went and had a breast exam and what have you, and indeed discovered cancer. And he's written this up in a couple of journals, and he's been really trying to get this message out, because I think that this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think that we get a lot of early warning health messages through our body in dreams, and they come through these repetitive messages. And these dreams can be quite short, and they can involve things like a vampire biting your throat, and it could turn out to be a thyroid issue. They can be quite metaphorical, and sometimes they can be absolutely dead on transparent about them. And so I say, if you have a repetitive dream about something that you have an intuition about being health related, just go ahead and check it out. I mean, definitely you've got more to lose than just the awkward conversation you're going to have with your doctor. You know what I mean?
Yes, indeed. That's
Right.
very
Yeah.
true.
And then finally, the other thing about repetitive dreams is, some people, of course, we're all working through, as we go, we have this core personal narrative that we developed as kids, that helped us survive, that helped us make sense of the world. And as we grow and take on new roles, new responsibilities, those the metaphor changes. We run into issues with our myths. We might have repetitive dreams that show us where ways of thinking or behaviors that no longer serve us. And it can be addictive patterns. It could just be the way that we, it could be interpersonal of nature. There's 100 different ways that this could go. But repetitive dreams that kind of point towards something that needs healing in a psychological sense or in a mythological sense.
Mm-hmm. Where do you come down on the use of sleep aids? I'm not talking about narcotics. I'm talking about something that is sold over the counter in the United States, or you can send away for it, which is I believe, an amino acid, and it helps. It helps to dream or to remember dreams. Do you know what I'm speaking of?
Oh, there's a few things. Well, there's sleep aids, and then there's dream aids, and those are definitely two different markets.
Yes.
And in blanket statement for both of them is they can be very effective, but use them in the short term, right?
Right.
Not the long term. I mean, that's just with everything.
The dream aid that I'm thinking of, it's recommended by most people that you use it 3 or 4 days in a row once a month. And it's an amino acid, I believe. Do you know what I'm speaking of?
It might be choline. Choline's a very common amino acid, isn't it? That
Yes,
it's often paired with B vitamins, um, B6 and B12, right? And it creates an effect of vivid dreams. Now, the thing about choline is that for some people it keeps them awake,
I see.
and in fact, we know that it increases awakenings, and so it's not. And it's often also paired with galantamine.
Galantamine, that's the one that I was
Ah,
thinking of, yes.
yeah, well, as it turns out, I just finished doing some research on galantamine with a couple of colleagues of mine at the University of Texas. And we've got an article coming out very soon in the International Journal of Dream Research on galantamine. And it wasn't a clinical study. We're hoping maybe to do that next. It was retrospective, and we asked 20 dreamers who have often used galantamine as a supplement for vivid dreams and for lucid dreams. We asked them how and in what ways does using galantamine change their dreams. Actually affect the dream content and how you feel in the dream. And we got some very interesting results that kind of gave us some further direction. Well, it's known for inducing lucid dreams, and that's because galantamine is a memory enhancer. I mean, it's used in mild cases of Alzheimer's. It doesn't, of course, cure Alzheimer's disease, but it improves memory function in the mild to moderate stages of Alzheimer's disease. It basically gives people a little bit more time before the final stages of degradation begin in the human brain. And so people have been using galantamine as a supplement, which in the United States you can get on Amazon.
Right.
Right now in the UK, you can't. It's prescription.
Nor in Germany can you get it. I know this for a fact.
Yeah. Okay. So so Europe, UK is it's a different story. In the United States, you just swipe your card, and you get it, and it seems to be quite safe. It has some mild effects. Some people have gastrointestinal issues with it. Some people, it just gives them insomnia. If taken at the wrong time, it can actually induce sleep paralysis. If you take it in the beginning of the night, and that's happened to me before.
Really?
Right. Yeah. And so what the lucid dreamers do is they set an alarm, and for the middle of the night basically, and so they get most of their deep sleep, all that restorative sleep out of the way, and then wake up around say 4 in the morning, take galantamine in a pill, usually 4 milligrams, 4 to 8 milligrams is pretty typical, and then they go back to sleep. And at that point, you have longer and longer bouts of REM. And the galantamine kicks in at the right time, and because galantamine at that time, it will strengthen your REM cycles, and it'll give you vivid dreams. And basically, that vividness and the strengthening of REM is just a perfect envelope for going lucid.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been known. In fact, Stephen LaBerge, who is one of the the Stanford scientists,
Yes.
who did all this work on lucid dreaming, he has done also a lot of work on galantamine. Sadly, most of it is unpublished. He's just been collecting clinical data, but he hasn't published any of it in a peer-reviewed yet. So what we did with our study was, well, we can't prove, or we can't get we couldn't get the study rights to work with humans yet. And so we basically did this retrospective. And what we found was interesting. What we found is that people are claiming that that galantamine makes their dreams longer. It makes them more vivid, but also there's less fear and negative emotions in lucid dreams that are preceded by galantamine.
Very interesting.
Yeah, there's a feeling of that they're more protected somehow. And we asked about, hey, does it induce sleep paralysis? And actually, we didn't get a lot of feedback from that. People were saying no, it really doesn't. So what this really does is it shows that there's a culture of galantamine use, and that's really what we investigated. This is what people are saying about their dreams with galantamine. And so the next step is to actually do some double-blind, some placebo work, to see, in looking at the dream reports and seeing how the dream reports, actually vary when they take the substance.
I think the placebo will be very interesting.
Yes.
I think that power of suggestion is
very strong. I've taken galantamine on occasion, and I didn't know that you were supposed to take it during the middle of the night, so I took it before I went to bed. I do have sleep paralysis in my life, which can be totally terrifying, but with the galantamine, I did not get sleep paralysis, even though I took it at the beginning of the night.
Good, nice.
But it usually took till the second night for it to kick in. In other words, the first night I took it, I might have some kind of a dream or not remember any dream at all. But by the second night I took it, I was doing well with it, and then I would take it 2 to 3 times, so at maximum 4 times in the month, because that's what I was told was safe and usable. And generally by the second night, I was having memorable dreams. If not lucid, some of them lucid. Now, what do you say to know that you're having a lucid dream? Do you go by the usual looking at the hands, becoming aware of your hands?
Oh, in terms of activities to do during the day?
Know that you would know that you're lucidly dreaming during the night.
Yeah, so to do a reality check, well, I have 2 favorites. One is that I'll look at text, and for instance, the spine of a book, or something written down, something that's more than a word, something that is at least a phrase. And then I'll look away for a moment and try to think of something else completely and get it out of my head. And then I'll look back at, at the text. In dreams, it generally has shifted.
Uh-huh.
In dreams, in waking life, generally doesn't. It doesn't shift.
Well, we may be living in different worlds. No, I'm kidding.
And another one that's wonderful to try, and is to clamp your nose closed with your fingers, and then try to breathe. In a dream, you're just going to continue breathing because it's your dream hand that's touching your dream nose, yeah, and so the breathing continues, and so that's kind of basically foolproof. There's a lot more of other ones, but those are the ones that I find are most reliable for me.
Oh,
And of
great.
course, it's important to do them in the day too, because you want to do a repetitive habit. You're making a cognitive habit, and you want that habit to naturally occur while you're dreaming. And so you have to take it seriously in your waking life. You have to actually do the reality check, and you have to actually question, is this a dream? And then that's the hard part.
On all these courses that you've given, do people report that their lives have been improved or that there's something good that's come out of them?
Well, I've only been teaching this particular course for
Mm-hmm.
about 3 months now,
Oh,
and so far I've gotten great responses.
mm-hmm.
People are definitely, yeah, people are having lucid dreams in the course. They're having lucid dreams after the course, and that's really what the course is about teaching them the methods to do it, and how to go about and continuously learning and continuously trying new things, and so you can find out what works for you the best. Because the truth is that lucid dreaming education uh, has not been very effective. Um, we can teach people how to lucid dream. We know it's learnable. I mean, Stephen LaBerge has shown that. But there's all kinds of motivational issues and myths, basically. And so the way you got to make it work for your own life. And that's what I'm basically teaching people is how to sustainably go lucid and think of it as a lifetime of learning, like something that you're going to do over the decades, because that's what it really is. For me personally, it's a spiritual life practice.
So let me ask you a question about your future, perhaps. Perhaps you've already started this, or perhaps you're considering doing this. I have learned through anthropology myself that the culture of sharing dreams and the culture of having dreams be an important part of one's life will give rise to more dreams, and that there are cultures in South America and in the Pacific where people get together every morning and share their dreams. Have you begun to form a dreaming community?
That's great. Well, I have, and I've had better dream communities, to be honest, than I do right now, because right now I am taking care of a 4-year-old for a good portion of the day.
Oh, sweet.
And so I get a lot of my dream community comes through doing these courses, and online work. But I do occasionally get out to do dream groups. And what I recommend for people is, if you can, to join a dream group, a peer group. You don't have to necessarily find, an expert that's charging you by the hour to do this thing. You can read a book, literally read a book on having a dream circle, learn some best practices, and then take turns facilitating the circle with a half dozen of your friends. And it's a very incredible experience to have, especially if you form a group, right, that you get to know each other and you have a sense of trust and you're able to talk about your dreams and in community, and and right, there's a certain ethics to it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And this is really what I'm speaking about. Is come out of what we call the contemporary dream work movement, which began in the 1980s. It began in Berkeley, California. And essentially, you have a group of dream workers who learned these methods and essentially said, hey, you don't need a psychologist to tell you what your dream means. At the end of the night, what you think your dream is the most important thing.
True.
It's the most important thing. And so there's an ethics that comes with that I abide by, and it comes from the International Association for the Study of Dreams, which I'm a member. I'm actually a board member, and the organization's been around for 30 years, and they teach dream work. They support dream research. It's great. Everything from science to shamanism with this group. But yeah, contemporary dream work is about grassroots. It's about doing this in your own community and having fun with it.
Well, I'm sure your little child has no preconceived ideas. Have you ever asked the I don't know, the boy or the girl what they think about, if they've had dreams?
Oh, it's great. I ask my son Connor. I ask him every day,
Uh-huh.
what did you dream last night? And I make the space for it. And what I'm finding is that he won't usually tell me if I ask directly.
Mm-hmm.
Or he'll say he won't remember, or he'll tell me about his favorite video game, which is Minecraft, by the way.
Mm.
And he'll tell me about how he had a dream about Minecraft, which may or may not be true, but what I suspect is that it's not true. But in any case, he tells me his story. He tells me a little bit about Minecraft. But when he wakes up and he remembers a dream now, he'll spontaneously tell me. He'll say, "Daddy, I had a dream."
Wonderful.
And he has told me those, and he's had nightmares, and he's had really sweet dreams, and sort of just images, and it's cool. It's very cool. And now that he's getting the language where he can articulate it, and the memory to look back and be able to do it, it's very cool to be here at the onset and to teach to have a dream positive house.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
I have one further question for you about dreams and about a dream group, and that is whether you have ever participated in a group of intentional dreamers who intend to meet, like, say, decide that everybody is, no matter where they're located, preferably in one or two time zones. You don't want somebody, at a totally different time necessarily, though I don't know if that makes a difference. And you have people say that on Sunday night, we will meet in a dream and we will do X, Y, or Z. Have you ever done like that kind of intentional work?
I have, and this was about 10 years ago or so, and I was with a group of fellow grad students. We were meeting up and talking about dreams about once a week, and for a while we tried this, and we had some interesting, I would say, near misses that could have been mutual dreams. Looking back, one of the mistakes that I think we made is that we often were location dependent. We're like, we'll meet you, in your dream at the beach, rather than we'll just meet you. And I think that might have quelled the effect somewhat. But I've heard some from people I trust, who've had pretty amazing experiences of mutual dreams. To the fact that I'm satisfied that they're not fooling themselves and they're not lying to me. And one of those people has actually written a book about it, and I believe it's called It's called Dream Partners. That's called Dream Partners. It's by Maria Pita, and James Kroll. And these are two people who met through a lucid dreaming forum, and they don't know each other in physical life, but they began corresponding, and then they tried an experiment, and they're both very proficient lucid dreamers. And their stories, their dreams are incredible. The hits are, I mean, it's just you read his dream, you read hers on the same night, and you're like, oh my gosh, how there's clearly something is going on here. So I think this is definitely an effect that we need more information on.
Sounds
Uh,
sounds fascinating, doesn't it?
it's great. It's great. So, and there's yeah, and so I would just, find somebody to do this with, and mortalmist.com is the forum that those two dreamers attend, and it's a very
Mortal
sweet.
Myth, MORTALMYTH.
Mortal Mist, as in MIST.
Mist, not myth.
Yes,
Okay.
Mist.
Mist.
Yes,
All
and
right. Mortal
very
Mist.
nice, very nice lucid dreaming community there.
Well, you have to give us all your websites.
Yes, now is the time for you to publicize yourself in any way you would like. Give us your book titles,
You
your
bet.
website, the whole 9 yards.
Well, the first thing is I don't think I've told you this, but I wrote a chapter in a book on out of body experiences, and it just got released last week.
Oh.
And it's an ebook, and it's free, and you can download it for free from my website, which is dreamstudies.org. And the book is called Consciousness Beyond the Body, and it's basically new perspectives on out of body experiences by multiple authors, multiple researchers. The editor is Alex Defoe, who's an Australian researcher, and I wrote a chapter on looking at evolutionary psychology and lucid and out of body experiences. Is there a way that this phenomena could be rooted in the deep past, and be selected for in some kind of way? And so that was kind of the thought experiment of my chapter. But there's chapters by Robert Wagner and Claire Johnson, who are both two lucid dreaming authors who are well known for lucid dreaming, as well as quite a few out of body experience researchers who talk about basically all of the mysteries, the contentions. The debate is all taught in the book, and so you can get it for free. It's a PDF, and right now it's going to be populated on Amazon and all the other booksellers, and it will be free as well. But as of right now, you can get it on my site easily. So that's the plug for the book. We're trying to get it out as far and as wide as possible and generate conversation. And I mentioned my website, which is dreamstudies.org, and that's basically where I blog about dreams and consciousness studies. I welcome anybody to take a look. There's a lot of content there. I've been writing on the blog since 2007, so lots of content.
Yes, well, and you also have a newsletter, which I receive.
That's right. Yeah, if you subscribe to my newsletter, you get a free ebook, and then you get basically bonus content and opportunities, and of course you hear about my sales first, and you hear about my classes, because I always offer my classes to my newsletter subscribers first. And so far, I haven't had to advertise. So
that's the way to go.
It's just been the newsletter, and so that's really the way to get onto the waiting list for the classes.
Well, we thank you so much, Ryan, for being our guest. It's been extremely instructive, and I think our listeners are going to be really thrilled to hear this. So thanks so much for being on.
And do we have to say pleasant dreams?
And pleasant dreams tonight.
Sweet dreams, sweet dreams. Thanks for having me on. I had a blast.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate
Bye now,
it.
Ryan. Thanks
Good
a
night.
lot. So, Kate, that was really wonderful, right?
Yeah.
And we all have something to work on in the evening to intend to have a good dream at night.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that I think that our next guest is going to be Michael Grosso, who wrote the book The Man Who Could Fly, which is all about Saint Joseph of Cupertino, who lived in the 18th century, in the 1750s, I think. And he's going to be our next guest, I believe, all things being good. And so that's
I wonder if he actually did fly, or if he was just dreaming he was flying.
Well, I've had flying dreams, haven't you?
No.
No flying dreams?
I rarely dream.
A person who actually flies in real life? No flying dreams?
No.
That's amazing.
I know, but you know what Confucius said?
What?
Last night I dreamt I was a butterfly. Now today I don't know if I'm a man dreaming I was a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming I'm a man.
I would agree with that big time.
Confucius say a lot of good things.
Yes, he did. He said a lot of wonderful things.
And so I guess it's time for us to say adieu to our audience.
Tschüss.
Yep, and all that. See you next time.
Adios. Bye-bye.